Welcome back to Rugby Chalk Talk with Joe and Levi. We have a special guest today, but before we get into that, we wanted to express our thanks and gratitude for the continued support we have for this, whatever we're trying to do, trying to spread the love of rugby. We also want to thank Mike Shepard from last week. He did a great job, and I know a lot of people appreciated that. But this week, we have another special guest. It's Coach John Harley. Coach, thanks for joining.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be on.
It's great to have you. Great to have you.
Thanks for coming, John. You and I have talked a little bit more each year over the last couple of years, gotten to know each other through the wonderful culture of rugby and some close friends that we both know, mutual friends. And just kind of growing up in the Indy area, playing rugby, coaching rugby, always like slowing down and talking to you. So it's definitely a pleasure to have you on here. Just like the last couple interviews, we want to catch your rugby story. That way somebody can watch it, whether it's one person, 10 people. If they get something out of this story, then just like our normal coaching jobs, we're doing our job of helping our community, and hopefully they can continue on the tradition and the culture, and someone like Levi can maybe do better than you and I someday. So thanks for coming on here.
Yeah, no problem.
So being a coach in Indiana, coaching high school level, we ran across each other's paths a couple times at rugby games, whether we were representing era together or we were coaching against each other, Brownsburg Fishers. Know a lot of the same guys. What do you recall what introduced you to rugby, and what were your early playing days of rugby like?
Yeah, man, it was. So I grew up. I played college football. I played college at Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. But then one summer when I came home from school, I was at that point it was called the Bulldog, now Mo and Johnny's.
Yep.
But they, that was at that time. It was where the Indianapolis men's team was. That was their hangout. They had a rugby game on TV. I was standing there watching it, and the bartender was part of Aaron Griggs was part of the Impalas. And he said, "Hey, you should come out and try it." Rest is history.
Wow. So was that while you were still in college or after you graduated?
No, I was home. I didn't actually finish at school.
Okay.
Once I found rugby, I was getting to the end of I don't know, football just wasn't fun anymore. I played my whole life and it just wasn't fun.
Right.
So I once I started playing rugby, I enjoyed that. So, like a lot of kids, I think sometimes the kids nowadays, I always hear them say, "Well, if you're not having fun, just quit." I don't know if I like that, but part of my story was, I was far away from my home. I was 8 hours away from my family. And I think sometimes too, when you hear about kids leaving school, especially, big time football players, they get a scholarship and they leave home. And I'm like, man, he was far from, I don't think people realize in order to be pretty successful in sports, you have a pretty good backing with family. I mean, and then I was 8 hours away. So I didn't have the backing that I was used to.
Right.
So, I came home. And like I said, I was at the Bulldog. I was in pretty good shape. I played football. Aaron said I should come out and try it.
Wow.
That's yeah.
So
Not
That's all
much
it takes.
story, but
yeah. So when you played football, was it just one position basically, high school and college? What position was that?
yeah, no, I played pretty much free safety in high school. I pretty much played everything. I played offense, defense, all the special teams. But then once I got to college, I just played free safety.
Right. Well, Michael Shepard had a point when he said playing offensive line was great. He liked it, but you didn't get to do everything. In rugby, you get to be every position. Now, some players probably shouldn't kick, but in rugby, you have the privilege to kick, run, pass, tackle, do all these kind of things, run with the ball. Levi, what for you, John? When you first went out to play with the Indianapolis men's team, how long was it for you to realize? Like, I know you saw it on TV, but how long was it for you? Was it a couple practices, maybe your first game? You realized, hey, I'm not just a free safety. I'm a tight end. I'm a tackler. I'm a linebacker. It's the option play where you pass the ball. Like, to a rugby or to a football kid growing up, how long was it for you to realize I get to do all of it,
And have
the
to
whole
be more
sport,
versatile.
and be more versatile? Yeah.
Uh, I mean, like my back. I don't know if I think what rugby for me wasn't all of those things. It was the fact that it was constant action. It wasn't necessarily running or passing or tackling. There was you were always doing something,
Right.
and that's probably when I got into college and I was just playing defense. You know, probably like a lot of kids, my mind wanders if it's not always active. So
Yeah.
with rugby, it's constant action, and I still use it today. When I first went to practice, all they said to me was, if you get the ball, run straight. If someone in front of you has the ball, tackle them. Other than that, pick it up as we go. And that's the coaching back then. There wasn't TV, not many games on. So I think for me, what I attracted me to rugby was just the constant action,
Yeah.
constant action.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'm a highly competitive individual. So once I started enjoying it, then it was what I need to do better. What do I need to do better? What do what do I need to do to take his spot?
Yeah.
He's playing in front of me. What do I need to do to take his spot? And especially all the Indianapolis guys, they laugh when that because I asked the question, what do I need to do to take his spot? And they said, well, you got to knock him out. And that it was Jamie Fontaine was playing in front of me. So then they laughed because they were like, we didn't tell Jamie we told you that. But the next practice, that's, every time he had the ball, I laid him out.
That's what happened.
So it was like, if that's what I have to do to get that spot, then I'll take him out.
Right.
And,
Amen to that.
it just went from there. And it was, again, I'm a highly competitive. Everything about me is I needed competition. Working out, there has to be competition. I like competition. I thrive off competition. And, with rugby, it's always constant action of competition. Me versus you. Me versus you.
Yep. Yep. The smaller competitions inside the big game of a competition.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely. How long was it? I mean, that's a good story. And I did play for the Impalas for a few seasons and got to know those guys. How long was it until you realized to those guys started becoming a close group of friends for you? There's rugby on the field, but it's really the culture that we all fall in love with eventually over time, and that's why a lot of us want to get back is for what the culture did for us. How long until you realized the rugby culture is a little different? This friendship is great. The after hours road trips and meeting at Mo and Johnny's or Connor's or stuff like. When did that start to set in for you?
Uh, you know, it was probably it might have been the first like overnight trip we took. And I'm still really good friends, and he's one of my assistant coaches, Paul Greener. But he always said, like one night in the hotel, we had a long road trip, and suddenly, I became chatty. I'm not the most talkative person in the world, so that's usually when I'm comfortable.
Right.
And that was it, man. Once I felt comfortable, then chains were off, and away we went.
You know, one thing Levi and I talked about in the first episode, and we've talked about this off the podcast. It's a little different when you go to war with somebody in the game, and whether you win or lose, you're beat up. Let's be honest, we all limp away from the game, whether there's rain, snow, warm weather. You pretty much put your body through the ringer. It means a little bit different when you do have that conversation with somebody in the hotel room and they go to bed the same time you do. Your brother that you battled with is right next to you, and he's going to wake up and do it again tomorrow with you. It's a little different. And we've talked about that. That's awesome. So how long did you play for the Impalas? Was that the only team you played for?
Yeah, I only played for the Impalas. I played about 10 years straight.
Wow.
And then, as I started to get a little bit older, it faded off into, coming out when I could, and then started to have kids. And then, of course, I even right now when I'm recruiting kids, I always, especially, I get a lot of parents on the call. Probably the best thing that came out of me playing rugby is I met my wife. And my wife Heather. So we'll be married 20 years in September.
Wow.
But we've been together over 22 years, and it's all been around rugby. She's highly involved, and the success that I've had in coaching is a lot, and thanks to her, and that she takes care of all the things that a lot of coaches don't like to take care of.
So true.
So, yeah.
She kind of told me your story, but you guys met at a rugby function after a game. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, she came to one of our, at that time we were back to Connors, and she lived right by Connors. So one Saturday she came to a match, somebody invited her out, then she showed up at the bar that night. That's where we met.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a good story. Like
Yeah.
like you said, that's a really good story to be able to share.
Yeah.
What rugby led you to. So the passion for rugby obviously grew during playing, and your relationship with her kind of developed around rugby. When did you know you wanted to coach, and was your family or your son playing? Is that what kind of got you started? Where you guys started with HSE, or was that on your own and they kind of just linked up together?
Um, no, it was so one season I did help out a little bit. My friend, Nico Squadroni was coaching at HSE, and they asked a couple of us. They sent a thing out to the Impala Old Boys asking if anybody would be interested. So I gave it a go for about a season, but at that time my son was still pretty little, so it wasn't right. Then in fifth grade, HSE started a fifth and sixth grade team. So we signed my son up. I actually wasn't going to coach because previous to him playing rugby, I tried to coach his baseball and football, and it wasn't a good fit for my son and I. So we signed him up, and I was just going to let him play. But when we got out there, it was pretty, like I don't think the coaches were teaching them what they needed to learn to be successful. So, I kind of said, "Hey, man, I played before. I'd like to help." They were all like, "Yeah, we'll do whatever." And next thing you know, I was the head coach. And, they were like, "Do whatever you want, man." So, and it just started going from there.
Awesome. So it started at that level. What linked you up with the Fishers level and Trout? Was it just you kind of being at that program and him starting it, or was this your idea as well?
No, so the first, when my son was in sixth grade, we made it to the state championships for fifth, sixth grade. And I had always wanted to believe, to get the young kids excited about playing in high school. I wanted the high school kids to be involved. Because when I was a little kid growing up here in Fishers, the football kids, the high school football players would always come down.
Right.
And I was like, man, I want to be an HSE football player. I didn't even care about NFL. I wanted to play HSE. So that's kind of how it started. And so I had Trout come out and talk to the kids. And, I mean, Trout actually played for the Impalas while I was playing.
Oh, wow.
So we'd known each other. So, from there, he just started saying, "Hey, I'd like you to come join the Fishers coaching staff." So, 2 years later, when my son was in eighth grade, I did both middle school and high school. And then, again, Fishers was pretty young. And, Nico, so how Fishers works, the kids can pick pretty much what high school they want to go to. My son was slated to go to HSE, but I felt Fishers was a better fit for my son. And then Trout was like, you should come help out. The only thing I said to Trout is, man, if I come, I'm not coming to just be a club. I mean, I want to be a professionally run, scheduled organization with, at that time the Brownsburg, Royal Irish, and Penn were throttling fans. So I was like, that's the goal. We want to be them.
Absolutely. And of course, Trout was probably on the same page.
Yeah, Trout was like,
Man. Levi, did you have a question?
No, I thought it was funny. He was talking good about your school, Brownsburg.
Yeah, he did say one little thing in there. Yeah, he knows how to make friends with
Don't
people.
get Joe's head too big.
No, Brownsburg is all right. Brownsburg's all right.
Yeah.
No, I remember we had a really good match there at Fishers one night. Fishers leading the whole game, and Isaac Good did an Isaac Good move and ran through about 12 people and scored at the very end of the game.
Barely won. I was there.
Yeah. Avon played Fishers right after that game.
Yeah, right after that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's one thing that I started noticing. I already knew it with Trout, but the way the Fishers program was running, I know people were probably telling you guys, but, Trout said something to us about basically when he was at Brownsburg, his voice was being heard a lot. And then when I first came up to Brownsburg's high school level, I noticed you were running a lot of the drills and warm-ups, and Trout was kind of doing the handshaking. And I asked Trout, about you, and Trout is, one of the smartest guys and he said, why would I be out there running it when somebody that I know is a little bit better than me? Why can't he do it? And we work together. And I remember when he said that, and your guys' videos were coming up on YouTube and stuff for Fishers, and I said, you could just tell from a mile away it's just about time where Fishers is going to pass us all. They're not coming to join us. Like you said, you were coming to build the program all the way up. And it was something you could just smell in the air when you knew you were playing them. When that year when Isaac scored, I remember on the way back, we were like, this might be the last time we ever beat Fishers because there's no way they're going to stay the same or get any worse. They're going to keep getting better. And we saw that. What was the friendship like with Trout while this program was building? Was obviously the friendship was building, right, between the two families?
Sure. Yep. I mean, Trout's he is one of my best friends. Even, I just talked to him today. And he wanted me to make sure to tell you that when you run out of stars to be on your show, he'll be happy to be on anytime.
I'm surprised you haven't thought about it.
Hey, I reached out to him. I don't know, man. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
No, but we still, I'm, when I got hired at Marion, I go back to Pendleton and help out from time to time. I told the son, little Nick, he's my first eighth grade recruit. So eighth graders. So it's certainly, he was great in that, as you said, when I got the Fishers, he basically just said, whatever you want to do, we'll do. And he like what my wife does. They let me just do rugby. Whatever I wanted to do rugby-wise, I didn't have to worry about the behind-the-scenes stuff. Everybody else took care of it. So it certainly helps when all you have to think about is getting better at rugby.
It's the balance. It's the balance of running a program. And Levi helps out with the Avon program, and his brother and his dad, and basically his whole family is still giving back to Avon what Avon Rugby gave them. I remember when Biggins and Trout were coaching at Brownsburg, they had a group of parents that were I just remember as a student in high school, at that point, when you made the top 3 in Midwest is when you found out you were going to nationals, which is like 2 weeks later. We didn't stress one bit as kids. And we're talking about California trips, Utah trips, fundraising, thousands and thousands of dollars that Trout and Biggins and these group of parents, they were putting in this work after practice. And they never once let the stress come onto our shoulders. And do you have any doubt? I mean, he did it with Brownsburg. He did it with Fishers. Do you have any doubt that Pendleton won't be at the top very soon?
I mean, they would definitely be competitive. The problem, if anything, with Pendleton is it's a small town.
Yeah.
So I know he can bring in from clubs around, but they would definitely be. There's no doubt. I think it would have been every year they're going to get better. So the 7th, 8th grade program is going to be a great asset for them.
Yeah.
Youth is getting the kids young. So I have no doubt that they're going to be highly competitive. And even at Fishers, that was the one thing. Sure, we want to be, but, losing to the Royal Irish in the state championship was awful. But we lost at a last-second hold-up. I mean, it was a close game, down to the wire. Those ones are okay.
Yeah.
Getting throttled.
Right.
That's not fun.
Exactly.
Right.
It's kind of like what Michael Shepard told us. Mm-hmm. He said he went on that tour to Wales, didn't play a single minute. But at the end of the day, he didn't get – and I asked him if he sat down on himself, and he said, no, at the end of the day, I knew I tried my hardest. And when you go home and you got close, you hung with one of the best teams, but you tried your hardest, you're able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I'm okay with that. So at Fishers, we all know it was growing. What was the first year you guys won the state championship? And I believe, was that against Avon?
Thanks, John.
No, I mean, state championship, just like Coach Harley said, they lost to Royal Irish, but you still be proud of where you are.
I was like, Joe's not aiming this question at Levi. I know the answer to that one.
Yeah. I mean, was that the first state championship, though, that year?
Yeah, so that we won, was it 2016? I don't even remember. I think
16, yeah.
Yeah. So 2016, I mean, we definitely were on the rise. We didn't have any matches in Division I. We were Division I that year. That was less than like a 40-point win. So it was kind of, there were some parents. Again, you get parents involved. They were like, "Oh, let's win more state championships." But Coach Stroud and I were like, There's no sense
Right.
in that. We're not going to get any better, and kids, the other teams aren't going to get better. So we'll move up. That year we barely lost to Brownsburg. The Royal Irish match was incredibly tough. So we were moving up just made sense to the Super League. So we moved up to the Super League in 2017.
Okay, so winning that championship though did help kind of push it to the, or was that already the time frame to move up?
If it was up to me, we'd have moved up. Uh, I just like where the competition. If Division One would have been, there's a lot of great clubs in there, but if they would have been close matches, then competition, breeds success. So,
Yeah.
if the matches would have been close, then we would have stayed and it'd have been fine. But like I said, I think kids don't do better winning by 40 points, and the kids that you're beating by 40 points. That doesn't make
Yeah.
that much good. So it's all about kids being successful and winning and wanting to play.
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys moved up. I think at that point there was only 4 teams in the Super League. Last season that you had with Fishers, there was about 8 teams maybe in the Super League. I don't know. I've been out of it for a couple of years.
7.
7. Were you a part of that growth for the state of Indiana to do that? Was Heather a part of that? How did you feel about that? Was that season a little different, knowing a bunch of these? There was probably still a big difference, right, between the top of the Super League and the bottom.
I mean that the top 4 teams were Penn, Brownsburg, Royal Irish, and then Fishers moved up and moved into the top 4. So there's still definitely a difference from the bottom 3.
Okay. So you said your last season you played in the state championship against Royal Irish. You kind of knew Penn, or I'm sorry, you knew Trout was probably moving on soon. Before Marion became a reality or anything, what was the program's movement with? I know you had Austin there helping out, some other good assistants. I know Trout was inside the school and he moved on, and we all know his recruiting tactics: get the most popular kid, and everyone else will follow. What was the confidence in the parent meetings and the board meetings like, knowing we need to keep growing, even though the guy that kind of came in and started the program is moving on?
Originally, so 2017 we moved to Super League. That was our first year. 2018 was Trout's last year at Fishers, and then so 2019, that was the year that so we lost to the Royal Irish in my state, but that
right.
was our year. That was the first year without Trout. Originally, it was still pretty positive. I mean, we had 60 kids on the roster, 55, 60. So it was still good.
Right. So 2017 was the year. I'm sorry, 2017 was the year you went to the state championship. Is that correct?
2018.
2018. I'm sorry. Okay. So that was
2017. We lost on a last second try to the Royal Irish in the semi-state.
Oh wow. So it was them 3 years in a row.
At 2017, they beat us on the last second try in semi-state. 2018, they held us up in the try zone, and then 2018 or 2019, they handled us pretty good.
Wow.
Man.
So in 2018, that was the senior year of like Nettleton
Correct.
and Sonnet. So what's it like having a group of seniors like that? So we had a group of seniors like that at Brownsburg a couple years before that, when we did pretty well at Midwest, and we thought we had a pretty good team. We pushed Jesuit, to overtime. You enjoy the year. I remember enjoying that year, but I knew we had so many good seniors that we were losing, and no matter how hard we tried, it was going to be really, really. It was almost one of those things you had to give yourself 2 or 3 years to replace it. Was that the feeling, or since you guys had gotten better every single year, no matter who your seniors were, did you imagine it just to keep going on? I mean, that senior class was amazing.
Yeah, the senior class was amazing, but the JV team won the state championship, beating the Royal Irish, so they were pretty loaded. I mean, the senior class last year was it was a pretty good class as well, and they'd been with the program since the beginning.
Right.
So, last year wasn't much of a drop off. Teenage kids don't always show up every week, and that's basically what happened.
Right.
They got caught on a down day, and we had a couple injuries. Not to make excuses, but
Right.
it is what it is.
Right. So I know your son, the rugby playing for him kind of ended at the end with a couple injuries and some stuff going on. So in junior high, he won a state championship, and then he won one or two state championships in high school,
He won two,
and then
two like
one in junior
part
high.
of the team.
Okay.
They got runner up in junior high, and then in high school, the JV team won state championship twice.
Okay. So is there like a room in your house that just has all these championship medals and trophies and everything?
I'm not a big medal guy personally.
Okay.
I'm part of my charm is I've kind of a short attention span, as I said. That's why I like rugby. So it's pretty much, and my wife will tell you if she joins in, win or lose, I'm on to the next. Like, the next day, even when we won the state championship, the next day was it was over and we moved on. I moved on. Time to get ready for the next stuff.
Wow.
So I'm not I'm just not me. I know some people do, that's fine. I just, it's a medal. We move on.
Yeah. It's more almost to remind you of the story of that year, maybe a few years, down the road of, hey, I remember we were on the same team. I have that one or something. I do remember at Fisher's, you guys were kind of, turning over leaves that no one really turned over before. I remember hearing stories about, and maybe these aren't real, maybe they are, but I remember stories of you guys really pushing your kids to the limit to help them succeed moving on in life, maybe getting the Navy SEALs in there to do some training that way. One big thing that stood out to me and I've always really, really appreciated, and your wife did share a little bit of the details of setting that up with me when it was happening, but can you tell us a little bit about that trip to Ireland, how special it was for you, your family, the players? Levi's looking at me right now like he may not know. So if you could share to everyone what kind of hard work, first of all, it took to take a bunch of teenage boys and their family to Ireland, and then also what were the life experiences taken out of that trip from Ireland?
It was I think it was priceless. In 1997, I went to England with the Indianapolis. Wow. So, rugby tours just take on a different meaning in that leading up to us going to Ireland, we always told the kids, rugby is definitely a family atmosphere. You can go anywhere in the world, find some rugby players, and you have friends. Yep. It doesn't matter what country you're from. They might give you some ribbon, but other than that, you're buddies. Right. It's not like when you hear about soccer stories where the international people despise one another. And so, we thought it'd be great. And my wife organized it, spearheaded it, ran it. 2 years of work of her putting in time and effort to get it all put together.
That's unreal. Yeah, she was telling me a little bit about it, but the planning and sponsorships, for 2 years and communication with the family. Did she ever get to put her feet up at all on that trip, or was it just busy the whole time?
No, I think once we got over there, especially when people that watch this that were there, the first 2 days were a little rocky, but once we got over the first hump, then it was quite enjoyable. And the kids, one of the moms came over to our house the other day and mentioned that her son's in college now. And told her that that was the most memorable sporting ever. Wow. Was going to Ireland and enjoying.
So what was it? Were you guys just playing rugby, or?
They did a whole tour. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about who you played and how long and what you guys did over there?
Sure. What is funny here is when I went over there with the men's team, of course, we went to England, and they thought it was a bunch of Yanks coming, no big deal. But that year that we went, we had a really good side. So the first match, they played us a bunch of maybe third and fourth players, and we throttled that team. Second match got a little tougher, and by the third match with the men's team, suddenly guys that were on the first side were coming out of the woodwork. And the same thing happened when we went with Ireland. So we played 6 matches. We had an A and B side.
Yeah.
We toured. my wife just walked in, so she can probably help with we played, the first match was, you can step on. Who did we play in the first match?
County Carlo.
So the first match was County Carlo, and they basically thought just that.
Same thing.
Yeah, and we throttled them. I mean, we handled them easily. Second match was against actual Crestlawn College. It was a high school program in Ireland, a very high-rated high school program, and we beat them on a last-second the point after kick. Nettleton made it to win that match.
Wow,
That's awesome.
So that was a little tougher. And on the bus ride home from that match, the final match against Castle Bar, the coach called me and was like, "So now, what kind of team are you guys bringing?" And sure enough, when we got to Castle Bar, they had a kid that was playing for the Ireland 20 team.
wow.
That we didn't think was going to play, but suspiciously he did. And that match, we lost by 5, and the ref told us we scored a try to cut it to 5. Ref said there was 10 minutes to go in the match. They kicked off, ball went out of bounds, blew the match up with like 9 minutes to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So there was a lot of similarities the way those games played out as a player and a coach.
It was pretty funny, actually.
So did you, when you guys were over there, Heather, thanks for hopping on here. One thing that we were talking about is the 2 years plus of work that you put in to organize this tournament, the sponsorships, all these things for these children. He did say one of the moms that you ran into recently said that the players said that was one of his greatest memories. When you go to IU and see some of the former players, or just really around any colleges or people that are working, when you run into them, is that usually something that gets brought up? Is that Tour to Ireland?
Oh yeah, that was a special team that we took there. We're still in contact with the players at Kentucky, IU, all over. So it's great to stay in contact with them.
Absolutely. And was there talks in the program of doing that again after?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Do you still have contact with the board there in Fishers and everything? Are you still working with them, Heather?
I get called from time to time. With being so involved with the program, there's a lot of overlap. So,
Yeah.
But we're trying to phase that out.
Yeah.
So I can stay with Rugby Indiana and Marion.
Right. Awesome. Well, that actually will take us into the next stage. So, great run with Fishers. You and Trout really, like you said, like I said, everyone kind of saw it coming, and then eventually Fishers just, started passing everybody there and getting up there with the top dogs and playing for state championships. The Marion thing, I remember Brett Nelson texted me about it and was, kind of like, wow, what a position to get, but also what a coach to get and what a family to bring on, a family that met through rugby, a family that works together through rugby, a family that almost does opposite of what I was told as a first-time head coach, sticking together. I was told that to be a good head coach, you almost got to divorce or break up with your girlfriend or wife just because it's so much work. So you guys being so tight and working so well together, when did it become a reality? Was it the first time you sat down with them, or was it something that over time you worked really hard to? What was a little bit of, just kind of right place, right time?
I think it was a lot of, Heather can add, but I'm not a big patter on my own back. I think it was a lot of right place at the right time, and it went really quick. We went to a football game, a Marion football game, end of September. They said they were considering a program. By November, they put out the ad for a coach. I applied. Early December, I was hired.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Well, I think it's important to give a lot of credit to Brian Sweeney.
Okay.
He served on the youth board with me. His son, Jack Sweeney, played for John. And he had been whispering president's ear for about 5 years to start the rugby team. So there was a lot of, the stars aligned at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Levi and I were talking last week. This is actually Levi's idea to reach out to you, to have you on here, because when he was in high school, really the only coach that reached out to him, and I think maybe even your brothers would say the same thing at first, the only coach that reached out to him from college was Gary Anderson. I mean, at that time, Levi is 4 years removed from high school.
Yeah.
At that time, compared to now, the recruiting, the opportunities for players to play rugby in college have just grown.
Absolutely.
So when you say right place, right time, Levi, I think every time I came over here, I mean, we got our own program to run and talk about, but he asked about Marion just because it is so intriguing. It's great for the next young kid to have another great opportunity where 4 or 5 years ago, really the only person I saw at the Midwest tournament or the national tournament was Gary Anderson and maybe,
Sure.
Salty Thompson, and he doesn't coach a college team.
Right.
So with these opportunities and you guys sit down and you say, hey, this is what we kind of need. They're saying this is what we want, and you're working everything together. When you leave that initial meeting, like, hey, they said they want me to be the coach. We're working with scholarships, a rugby pitch, some of the stuff that's necessary to build a program like we've done in the past. What was it like the first conversation with just you two? No phones on, no car ride. Were you like, this is finally our baby together that we can start from the very, very beginning and build up? What was that kind of like? I mean, you guys, I'm sure you brainstorm every night, but was the first night just talking about like what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and then kind of talking about that stuff? What kind of obstacles? I know COVID-19 is a big obstacle for everybody, but what about these players that are coming from another country or another state? What's those conversations like with the parents? Has there been any issues, anything that popped up that you're like, we didn't think about this?
No, probably the biggest issue, and as far as when they offered us the job, as I said, Heather's probably my number one supporter.
Oh, yeah.
So the whole time she was like, "You're going to get the job, and it's going to be great." So when Mr. Downing, the athletic director, called and offered it to me, Heather was like, "I told you." So I don't know what you were worrying about. I told you to hire you. And as far as like the biggest obstacle in the beginning was getting contact info. I went out to some practices. I met with St. Ignatius, St. Edwards. I would get in front of the kids, local clubs. I went to IU or HSE, Fishers. Came to Avon. Passed out flyers, passed out my contact info, but none of the kids replied. None of the kids reached out, so I had no way to get in touch with them. I mean,
oh yeah, you're giving all your info out, but you didn't get anything in return.
Not getting anything in return, and I would, new club probably, weren't sure, or we're not that club. I shouldn't say that. New varsity team.
Yeah.
Kids weren't sure, busy, but once the pandemic hit and golf started giving out the contact info, and the parents. So I would get in touch with the kids and the parents. Suddenly, I guess they had nothing else to do, so they were responding. And since it's been pretty. I probably should preface everything with I lack patience. Patience was not a virtue I was granted with. So, again, that's what Heather's for. She keeps telling me it's not going to happen overnight. No,
right.
That's unacceptable.
Right.
It should be.
I like that she laughed at that.
Yeah, it's true. So she's always, clears me. Break. It's okay. So, but yeah, even with the overseas and the international kids. I know I'm not that old, but the internet is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
We got this thing called Zoom, where we're basically sitting in the same room. So I've met with the kids. With Heather's help, we created a really nice presentation that lays out the school, the academics. The number one thing at school is they're going to school for an education. And, we're as a varsity team, Marion, we have all the resources we need to make sure they're in the class, they're having trouble. And, all schools offer free tutoring, free assistance, and all those things. The difference at Marion is a lot of teenage boys wait till it's too late to even ask for help, if they ask for help. Mm-hmm. Whereas we're monitoring that stuff, so there is no choice.
Right.
The professor lets me know that you're having an issue, then we get you a tutor and you go get help. That's just how it will work.
Right. Instead of some kids waiting until their back is against the wall completely to come for help,
Right.
as a coach or someone that just helping your community. And I've been in the same situation. If someone's back's completely against the wall, or if they come to me and it's too late, I'm helpless. I can't help them when I
Right.
want to. And I think you guys would agree, would do anything to help you as long as you're willing to put the work in. But can't help you unless you speak with us, and that's awesome. So you guys sat there, you talked, you come up with the idea of what we're gonna do to recruit some of these kids. Just kind of following it myself, it looked like a few kids had to take the leap of faith, but now the ball's rolling, and
Yeah,
you've
it
gotten
is.
some guys coming. And the cool thing is, one thing I really do like about our program at IPY is a lot of local kids, a lot of kids from around this area. I had a player once that had to miss every Tuesday night because he was working extra hours to help provide for his mom and help pay rent. Those are the kind of stories that are just really cool. He still came to practice. They all knew each other from Indiana select side or tournaments. With you, you're getting players from different areas all around the country, and really overseas and everything.
Yep.
What do you think what kind of dynamic is that going to bring to the program with everybody coming from a different background and putting that all together in one mixing pot to make the Marion University rugby team? I mean, what's the language barriers going to be like? The rugby style, heck, getting the parents to trust you to send their kid in a plane all the way here. What are those conversations been like between you two of how you're going to make all that work? I know that there's a lot of talent on there, but talent doesn't win championships. Is going to be what you guys are developing with this program that you've done such a good job starting. What's the key moving forward to get everybody on the same page?
Creating
You don't
that
have
one
patience. Yeah, the one culture. You say you don't have patience. You're a really good coach. How do we get all this put together for the culture to move forward and work the way that you guys see it working?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think in my answer is structure. There's a tremendous amount of work going on behind the scenes. So when the kids plan and come together, there's going to be team building activities. The rugby will bring you together. And there's a lot of different levels of skill coming to Marion.
Yeah.
So I think John is being very selective with the type of players he's picking. And they're very hardworking kids.
Right.
Especially kids from overseas are very mature compared to the kids in the U.S. I've been very impressed
Right.
with how mature they are, and I'm so excited.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be a great way to motivate kids too.
Right. And bringing everyone's talents together to work to help each other and not to bash. One thing I said when I was telling my story to Levi is the college kids at IUPUI compared to the high school or junior high kids I coach, the college kids, they don't waste their time. They don't waste your time because a lot of them have girlfriends, school, work. Some are helping their family. For them to come to practice at 8 o'clock at night, they have to really want to play rugby. They're not going to waste their time. So someone that's going to come from overseas and that you guys have kind of talked to the family to see if they're a good fit for you as well. Obviously, they're going to come over here and probably not waste anybody's time. I mean, that's a lot of time and effort just to come here and not do kind of what you said you're going to do. How many do you have on the official roster right now?
15 committed.
15?
Yep.
Are
10
you-
off pending.
So I mean, that's a great start. I mean, we were in the MCRC my first year there, and we saw teams like Thomas More do really well with 20 players, but they built. They didn't stay at 20. They've gotten bigger. For you guys, when you do get them all here, and with the pandemic, it throws a whole nother trick of getting around. Are they all going to be staying in the same area on campus? Is that a perk of the varsity program?
Right. Yep. So at Marion, it's up to each individual team coach what they choose. But so at Marion, kids that want a room with rugby players, I can make that happen. I also have decided, my wife always likes to add when we're on our calls, they're going to have fun. So if a kid, they're going to be around rugby players all the time. If a kid would want to room with someone else, I'm okay with that. They're going to be in the same dorm hall. They might not just be rooming with a rugby player. But most of the kids have chosen to room with other rugby recruits, so
Yeah.
Right.
we're making that
And
happen.
what's great is that because John's a full-time salaried coach, he's on campus nonstop. I mean, that's his job, to be on campus during the day, having the structure of workouts, practice, so they have time to have fun. So, I think it'll be a little bit of a different environment from IUPOI where, by 7 o'clock at night, they're done. They get to go and kind of have fun. study, do whatever they want to do. Their day is over as far as rugby in school. So it'll be
Right.
a little bit of a very structured environment as far as workouts, training, nutrition, classes, and then boom, you're done, ready to go.
So they'll be working out together as a team, like you said. You have a strength and conditioning coach practicing as a team, but then they also have the free time to kind of get away from each other or have more time together to have fun. What are some of the things? Maybe not questions that you weren't expecting, but some important questions that maybe us living in this country our whole life wouldn't think of. What are some of the questions, or even the state? Some of the questions from a California parent or someone in South Africa. What are some of the parents asking you guys about Marion that kind of helps you set yourself different away from maybe some other programs? Like I know it's the family. Like you said, one of the things you say on the meetings, John, is how you met your wife, how rugby is important to your family. What you're not worried about the medals. You're worried about really developing these kids and moving on the very next day to keep getting better. What are some of those questions that they're asking you that you can really show your value? I mean, everyone in this area, we know how great of a family you guys are for rugby, Indiana rugby, Fishers rugby, high school rugby. What about someone that doesn't really know you? How are you showing? What are some of those questions they're asking you that really had you put on a serious answer? And
If I'm being completely honest with the presentation that we've created, and we're doing Zoom meetings so that they can see me. We're in a meeting. It basically lays out everything you need to know about the city, the school, life, and of course I prep Coach Vern, the strength and conditioning coach, the reason players will have on campus as a student athlete. So I start all of the presentations with, as a varsity sport, we will have an expectation on us to be good students and be productive on the field, and that's just how it is. When I was hired, the president told me my job, two jobs at Marion as a head coach. One, bring in good student athletes that want to get a degree. They want to be challenged, be good students, be good ambassadors for the university. And two, it's a small family-oriented campus. Win or lose, we love all of our coaches. Lose, and we'll love and miss you. So, I mean, success academically and athletically is what the university, that's what they strive for. And, I not because I'm the coach at Marion, but I've reached out to some other coaches. For our program, there's not much else a rugby kid could need if he's wanting to be academically successful and athletically successful. I mean, they have everything at a 3,600, 3,600 student university that there's nothing you need.
right.
Well, and I think Joe, to answer your question too, to kind of piggyback on that, when I first saw Marion, I saw the tuition. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a sticker shock. It's a lot of money. It's private, high quality university, and especially they have 100% employment rate after graduation.
Wow.
Especially with this pandemic times and this, everybody's forecasting a recession over the next 5 years. A great network and a great education is going to take you very, very far. And when you come into a athletic program that you have, John has access to athletic tutors just for the athletics, not just the general population, but he also has the support system of the president, of the athletic trainer, of admissions, all these other resources, myself included, the strength and conditioning coaches. Coach Vern has been amazing. He's super high energy. The kids are going to love him, crank up the music, get in that weight room together. It's going to be awesome. And plus the facilities that they're building for rugby as well. We're going to be in downtown Indianapolis with a huge, beautiful pitch, that's going to be in a beautiful setting. It's going to be a great event to come to, not only for kids on campus, but also for the surrounding community. And when you package all that stuff together and you show it in a professional way to parents, they sign on quickly.
Yeah.
And I think especially once we start playing some matches, cross our fingers, this fall, I think the local rugby clubs will think, hey, this is great. Let's go down and watch some rugby at Marion. And let's watch a friendly between maybe IUPUI and Marion, or Purdue and Marion, or IU and Marion, whatever.
Right.
Just to kind of get some additional rugby in, because it's not going to be far to go to. Everybody can get to Marion and Central Indiana in less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're really looking forward to giving back to the community, having our kids be referees, having our players be coaches for youth as well.
Yeah.
And so we really want to be able to give back and to feed the system that we know is out there and the structure that we know we can provide.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Did you have a?
Yeah. So I know this is my last year at IUPUI, and one of the things the captains are talking about before the season starts is trying to create like that friendship as a team, because our team does better when we're friends and we get along. We have a reason to fight for each other. Do you guys have plans for your students and your athletes for team get-togethers or something?
Oh, absolutely. They're already starting to do that now. They've already created group chats and Snapchat messages, and they're already starting to kind of learn more about each other and share each other with videos. And I think that's nice about kind of what we offer. We live in a pretty okay house up in Fishers with a big pool. We can have we can host things here. We can take them on team building events. We'll be able to do some things even on campus as well.
That's awesome.
But I think that's a great point, Levi.
Yeah.
That definitely, it was shared with me at dinner tonight at the Hawks house that our seniors have been getting together on their own. I mean, we have our group chats and stuff. And by the way, to get off the track a little bit, my first year coaching, our official team chat and group me was a hangout chat. I mean, it was very, very, it wasn't the official messages, right? So one of the first things I had to do was I said, let's make a no coaches chat, and let's also have a side chat for all of us to talk about anything. Because you say, hey, this is our first call out meeting. This, it gets watered down with who's doing this and who's doing that, who has the homework for this class,
Yeah.
So those group chats, sometimes I will just sit there and I think maybe they forget I'm in the group chat because I won't say anything. But some of the stuff's absolutely hilarious. But then some of the stuff will absolutely amaze you. And tonight at dinner, I found out that our seniors, outside of our senior group chat and our captain group chat and our team group chat, our seniors have been getting together and also talking about what they want to do as a team and their way of giving back. We already have, Levi's already helped with Avon rugby. Zach Harlan helped with junior high rugby at Brownsburg, and how can we continue to do that, and how the next group will be able to do that as well, is, like you said, Heather, our way to give back to the community what we got out of it moving forward. So that's really great. That's awesome. One thing, I know you've gotten my feedback, but you guys kind of taking this step in the Indy area with the program, have you heard from other coaches? Has this put the pressure on other schools to maybe take care of their coaches in their program and maybe get what they deserve out of it because of what Marion has done with you guys? And obviously this is great for your family. This is great for the players going to Marion. But let's not remember, putting you guys on the staff and starting a program is really doing a lot of good stuff for Marion as well. I mean, you guys they're really going to get their money's worth having your family involved and the kids and the program building. Have you heard from other than just me, and my personal story with IUPUI and what we've tried to do, have you heard from other schools and teams saying, wow, John, you guys really started the pathway, and now I kind of have something to lean on when I'm talking to my university to help grow our program, whether it's varsity or not, still taking the next step with the school support.
Well, it's funny, when you hosted that sevens tournament in January, the Taylor coach contacted me like immediately after and was like, tell me everything you did. How'd you talk to the president? How'd you talk to the board? What did you send? And I'm like, hey, I'm an open book. We're sharing a lot of our strategies and our financial explanations of why rugby is a great fit for universities. We've already shared it with USI, Taylor, anybody else that kind of wants that information. We've already been out there sharing it with them. Whether it's a good fit for who's delivering the message, that's a whole nother story. I'm a big proponent of, sometimes it's good to take the coach out of the situation and you have another advocate talk to the university. Yeah. I'm a big fan of that, because I think you can, especially with somebody with a financial background or strategic leadership background, sometimes you're going to do a different spiel than what the coach would. I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. Not to say that's the best way. Right. Sometimes the coach having it, go full throttle, that's great too. But, at least for us, we want to see other teams succeed. We want to help them get there as well.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. I think that's kind of at the very beginning of this conversation, John. We had talked about kind of what rugby started doing for us and the beginning of our stories and how we can give back. And there's nothing wrong with sharing that with the next program and let them try to figure out their own way, because if you're confident and you're true to yourself, it doesn't really matter what the other program's doing. You guys are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So there's nothing wrong with helping. And I think in American sports like football and basketball, it's almost a bad thing to be friends with a guy
Right.
after a game, or sharing jerseys, or coaches, sharing. We used to run this kind of offense. We don't run anymore. We can help you out. They don't. It's kind of hard. It's almost tough guy stuff. But rugby community is not really like that.
Absolutely.
And you guys have done a really good job. A couple things to wrap up. One, the first one, what's maybe the 2-year, 5-year goal of the program? Wins, losses, where the program is, relationship with the school, and the kids getting degrees and stuff like that. If you could quickly kind of run down you two. I know the school has their plans and what they want, but at the end of the night, it's you two sitting there talking, and your family has done. I mean, your family's so well known for what you've done in your communities through rugby. I mean, rugby's a platform for what you've really done in the hearts that you really touched. At the end of the night, what's the 2-year, 5-year goal?
The immediate goal is I expect to be highly competitive right from the get-go. Within 2 to 3 years, the goal is to have 50 to 55 players on the roster and move up to D1 AA, D1.
Oh,
So
We're coming for you.
that's what when we were
the new Fishers. Yeah, no kidding.
that's what is fun. There's 10 kids that play rugby at IU, and I still chat with, especially like Nettleton. We're still friends, and I chat with them. And I was like, just so you know, when you started at Fishers, Royal Irish were who we were going for. Just so you know, IU has become my new Royal Irish.
Yeah. And you're on the wrong side, sir.
We can still chat, but I'm coming.
Absolutely.
And I agree. That's what's great about sharing the information, the camaraderie with rugby, and having that social afterwards, and having everybody get together after a match. No other sports like that,
Right.
as you guys know. But when we talk about that with different coaches, they give this really weird look to you. And they're like, "What do you guys do after a match? Like, what are you talking about?" So I think it's great. We did that a lot with Fishers, especially as we were going for Ireland. We told everybody about it. Anything that we can do to help other people, and that will equate to wins. That will equate to bringing better quality rugby players. I mean, with Fishers, we could only recruit from the student body, and here now those guardrails are taken off of John. We just signed a kid from Scotland today. And we've got just tremendous contacts and potential for more players to come and get a top quality education for a very low cost. And so we're super excited about how that's going to not only increase the competition levels for Marion, but it's going to make everybody else better that we play.
Absolutely. So 2 years Division II National Championship, 5 years D1 AA National Championship.
2 years.
1 year. Sorry.
First
Tomorrow.
year
I don't know.
First year champions, and then we'll see where we go from there.
There we
Come
go.
on, bro.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It took me 55 minutes, but I got it figured out.
He said he was competitive.
I know, he wasn't lying. No, I really enjoy you guys have you guys on here. Like I said, Levi's actually the one that wanted to ask you, Coach, to come on here.
I remember we talked to him when you came to Avon. I remember talking to you a little bit about it. So
For sure.
Levi's the next wave, right? Like,
Yep.
we had our playing days. We kind of have our stories of what led us into coaching. I started at the junior high level. My brother was on the team, was taking him to practice. Kind of one of my old
Right.
friends was coaching, and I fell in love with it. We have our stories, but Levi's already reaching back to his communities, helping out. He's going to be the next one. When I talked to him about sharing our stories, one thing I wanted to do was to get high school and college players on here. But coming from a college player's mind, he's like, why not get some guys like Michael Shepard, Harley, some coaches, maybe Trevor Rothfuss, who just finished at Davenport, to share their stories before we bring the high school kids on, because really this is the path that's being laid down for the next group to go through. And I think
we want to know how to get to that, how to get there.
and that's Levi's. Their thirst is he wants to probably be someday in his living room with his wife being interviewed
Absolutely.
while they're wearing their rugby gear and saying what they did for the community, and that's part of giving back, like we talked about. It's full circle, and it's exciting. Levi's, one of the he was more mature at his age in 7th grade than most 7th graders, and then now at this level he hasn't slowed down. And I think when we coach and we talk about winning and winning tomorrow and being the champs. At the end of the night, though, we rest easily knowing these kids are getting degrees, learning life experiences. You're going to have kids from other countries meeting together, learning from each other. I'm excited to see how the language barriers go with that. That's going to be, I mean, that'll
They all
be
speak
exciting.
English, Joe.
Yeah, they all speak English.
They're all English speakers.
You don't have anyone that everyone is?
Yeah.
I thought maybe you were practicing your Spanish or something. I didn't know.
No.
Nope.
South Africa.
Or you're South
we got
African, yeah.
South Africa, 2 from England, 1 from Scotland right now, and a couple of the offers out are for a kid from Italy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Still going to be an interesting game
Might
right here.
speak, but he speaks English when I talk to him, so.
Hey, he gave you everything you had. That's all you had. Hey, we had a kid from California come for a visit last winter, not this last winter, but the winter before, and it was so be it. He flies here, and the first morning he's here was the biggest snowstorm we had that year. It was like the first time the snow kicked in. I'm like, this kid's never coming back. I was talking to Eddie Abel on the way down to the campus. He's like, yeah, that kid probably won't even be there for the meeting. He's probably already on his way home. This kid loved it. He's taking pictures in the snow. He's got his mouth open with the snowflake. He absolutely loved the snow. I said, well, I guess Indiana has something to offer a California kid. I don't know, but I mean,
I know.
They were able to find a positive out of that when I was like, man, I have to clean off my windshield, and it's just really cool that you really don't know, and you can't predict what they're thinking as well, and putting that all together. The last question, and I know Levi's got one after this.
Yeah, no worries.
Heather, what is it like? A lot of families, the husband will leave and he'll go to practice and he'll come home and have to be with the family. Really, with John, his family is, whether you're in the car with him or not, you're with him all the way around. What is the support for him, like, putting in that time and effort? I know it's a hobby for you as well, and it's an interest and a passion for you,
Right.
but just supporting your husband in a life where families really have to stick together. There's a lot of kids without the dad or the mom in their household. A lot of families are split up. You guys have been able to stick together, raise your own, but also really raise a bunch of other kids. I mean, there's kids I saw at the Kentucky game last year, like, oh, that's my son. He came over to my house. Well, he wasn't really your son, but he was your son because of what you've done for him. What's the passion for Coach Harley, being a coach, been like for you to be a mama to all these young kids, help raise them and be in their life? What's that kind of been like on your heart, and how you feel at the end of the day of how much you've really given back?
Well, Joe, you're gonna make me cry.
Go for it. I mean,
Well, and we think it's easy. It's second nature to us, so we really love it.
absolutely. And obviously, if it wasn't for rugby, it'd be a different way, right, John? I mean, that's just kind of how your family's built, and how you guys are with the community, having people over and just always taking care of them. Sorry about that.
Look what you did, Joe.
I know. Sorry about that, but no, I mean, really honest.
Fun today, just for you. Now you're
Well,
ready.
and now it's all. It still looks fine.
It's pretty funny, like when you say how we are getting kids this far away. I mean, we have 2 kids right now, possibly 3 coming from California,
Right.
2 kids coming from Texas. So really, there's only 1 kid right now coming from Indiana. The rest of them are all coming a pretty good distance, and
We have 2 from Indiana.
possibly 2 from Indiana. And really, the biggest message we told them, in Fishers, our house is kind of known as the Harley Rugby Compound, in which there's always rugby on the TV. If it's nice out, there's rugby on the TV outside while I'm sitting in the pool lounging. And there's rugby kids around the house. So it's kind of like, we just made sure to let the parents know that no matter what, if they can't get home, they're not going to sit in the dorm by themselves.
Yeah.
They will come to our
That's
house,
awesome.
Right.
and we will
That's
do
awesome.
rugby here.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. I think, Levi, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you said you watched the past episode, so you know what this last question is. We're trying to start this tradition of getting, kind of memorabilia from whoever we're talking to. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's cool with you guys, I mean, we want to ask if we can,
Make a trade.
make a trade, Marion shirts, rugby ball. Doesure matter what it is. We're just
Sure.
For an
asking,
IUPUI shirt.
yeah, for an IUPUI
Yep.
shirt.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
Yep.
if that's
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no
I think he's an XL. So, but before we let you go, thank you guys for everything.
XL, man. If you're an XL, then you got to wear a large. If you work out, that's what I always tell Heather. I work out all the time, man. I go down a shirt size.
Then give me a large. You know what? Let's make it tight.
Whatever
small.
you do, don't get me a large. All right. I actually got a question. I just now thought of this, Heather. If rugby was at your high school, would you have played rugby in high school?
Oh, definitely. I played soccer, and and I was getting red cards all the time.
Oh, so yeah, you're set.
She was
You were
basically playing
ready.
rugby
You were
already.
playing rugby on the soccer field. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thanks
Oh,
for
you know,
everything you guys are doing.
Did you give credit to Trout?
Yeah, we talked about Trout. Hey, and you know what? I got to give a shout out to my boy, Gary Anderson. Gary Anderson. I told him I'd say his name 3 times.
Yeah.
Pretty good mates. And, we still, through ERA is how we met when I was coaching at Fishers. But we chat basically all the time. At least once or twice a week, we'll text back and forth, see how it's going. So it's
But
great.
I want to make sure, since I jumped in late because I was on a Rugby Indiana call, but, if it wasn't for Coach Trout and me yelling at Trout, telling him he was doing something wrong, and for him to tell me, well, why don't, can you do it better? I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I can. Watch, and I'll just do it better.
You three on the same team is unreal. I played for Trout. I've always kind of wanted to be like him as a coach, and it's crazy because he hasn't been on the show yet, but every single person on here has brought up his name.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
I need to
touched
meet this
so
guy.
many lives. Yeah, Levi needs
I
to
don't
meet
even know
him.
who you guys are talking
Yeah,
about.
so I mean, he's touched so many people's
Rugby
lives.
Jesus here.
Funny thing about Gary, he reached out after I shared my story, and he said, "Wow, my name was out there. You said my name. I feel touched." And I was like, "Hey, 20 people have liked this story. You're probably famous by now. You're welcome, Gary." But hey, guys, thanks for everything you're doing for the community, all these young people, the culture of rugby, everything you've done for me, the long conversations we've had, Heather, with helping me getting used to my new program at IUPUI. I look forward to people like Levi listening to all these stories and doing it better than any of us could have done it. So thank you so much, guys. You guys are amazing. We love you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Good job.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much. That said,
See you later, Levi.
see ya. Nice to meet you guys.
Yep.